Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome once again to the NIA Fireside Chat, live from Roseville Avenue in Newark, New Jersey, on this lovely Thursday evening. Joining me is Sheikh Dawood, our Imam. And tonight we're wrapping up the Fireside Chat with our discussion around the series that Sheikh you just did, the four-part series on Journey from Africa to America. And many of you have seen the four-part series where Sheikh talked about the journey, the impact it has had on Islam in America, Islam in the Caribbean, Islam as part of the diaspora, and aspects of that journey both in the Caribbean and America. And tonight, inshallah, we'll dive in a little more about that journey and talk to Sheikh about some of the important points that came out from his discussion in the four-part series. Sheikh, welcome once again. And before we dive in to the questions, I just want to remind everyone who's looking and joining us tonight that this session really was about you all who have seen the four-part series to really ask questions, to get clarifications, and to ask Sheikh, things that you need to be clarified, questions you have relative to the journey of Africa to America, or questions you have in general about the diaspora. And so please post your question in the live chat. So Sheikh, just remind us once again as we warm up tonight around when on the four-part series, if you could just spend 5 minutes or 3 or 5 minutes, just summarize for us again, like what was the significant aspect of the four parts together?
طيب أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The Islam, the journey of Islam from Africa to America, we thought it as a very significant subject to cover at this time. Islam, as we know, began in Arabia, and historically, according to historics, that Saudi Arabia was part of Africa at one point before the cataclysmic separation of Africa and the Red Sea came in between. So it began in Arabia, and then it went from Arabia to Africa first. And the first Muslims were refugees. We wanted to emphasize that first point because most people tend to think that Islam always hear Islam is spread by the sword. The first Muslims that went out, they went out even as missionaries. They went out as refugees. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, sent a group of his followers to Abyssinia, to the Negus over there.
After the struggles they'd had
after
in
they
persecution.
faced so much persecution at their hometown in Mecca, in Arabia. So that's the first. So Islam went to Africa first. And then from there it continued to go right across Africa. It went across North Africa, right, Egypt, right on into Morocco on the other end. It was from Morocco that it went into Europe. From there, it went into Spain from Morocco. But it went west on West Africa. I mean, it went to north, and then it went west, and then it went south. So the Mauritania and all those places, and it went down into the African continent. And Islam, the second point that was important, Islam went in those places not by soldiers. There were business people, merchants, scholars, what have you, that caused that great spread. Not that there were not a few battles that were fought, but these were after, most of it was after the establishment of Islam and people in Africa. And Islam made significant contributions in Africa because most of the languages of Africa, and from that area, also in Arabia, there were spoken languages. And Islam, with the development of Islam, they became written languages. So Arabic became a written language, and Swahili and Hausa and all these languages became written languages using Arabic script. for the first time until the Europeans turned that over and did the Latin script. Islam first came out of Africa to this part of the world. As I said, it went to Europe out of Spain, through Spain from Morocco, with the Berbers going that side. But it came to this part of the world, to the Americas, and we say the Americas, we talk about North and South, including the Caribbean. It came to this part of the world from Africa, from West Africa. It came first, according to historical sources, it came through explorers. Abu Bakr, the first, the brother of Mansa Musa, who was the leader of the empire, and he came, and that's how Mansa Musa took over from him, according to the reports of Idrisi. And so Islam came here first, the Muslims came first as explorers, and they blended in. You know, a lot of this historical stuff is established, so we can look
When you say came to United States?
They came
the
to the
Caribbean?
Americas.
Okay.
They came to the Americas. There's a natural channel from Africa into the Caribbean, the equatorial currents,
Right.
bringing into the Caribbean. And then they move either south or north.
North, okay.
All right, and this is basically what was happening. And they came, and then they moved north, right, as we see coming up through North America, up to, right up to, they had up. It shows the historical pattern is there, and it was proven many times by people. Thor Heyerdahl, we mentioned about Thor Heyerdahl, Norwegian explorer who crossed in the bulrushes and he came over into the Caribbean. And so Islam came first. Then the second wave of the Muslims coming to this area came when the Europeans began to kidnap people from Africa, right? The British started this. They kidnapped people from Africa and they brought them. First experiment started in Barbados. They brought them there and they tried to establish an experiment, see how they can, if it can work. Because they tried other people, the Europeans, and they were not good slaves. They couldn't, they couldn't take the rigors. So they went to Africa. This is a continent full of people. They grabbed them, they brought them here, and they started the first experiment of chattel slavery in Barbados. And it was from there they exported north to South Carolina, and then it spilled all over the United States, and it went all south. So it is known that at least 30 to 35% of those people who they bought from Africa and sold into slavery, that 30 to 35% of them were actually Muslims. Some say higher percentage, some say lower percentage, but it is a good balance to say 30 to 35 based on the two extremes that we know in terms of figures that they put out. That came, but they were Muslims. And of course, they brought their religion with them. Many of them were literate. Most of those people came, they were literate people. Some more literate even than the European masters who controlled them. And they made a significant impression in the first impression here. Many of them, and there are many artifacts that exist showing these people. Qur'ans written by hand, and so many other things that is there. Biography of Solomon bin Job and these people that exist, showing the standard of these people that came. So that was the second great wave through slavery. The third wave that came was the indentureship. The indentureship period, when the Europeans now abandoned, had to give up slavery as was practiced at the time, how it was practiced. They had to give it up not because of any benevolence, but because it became too expensive.
Yep.
It became too expensive, so they gave it to slavery, and they went to India and Java and Java
Indonesia.
and Indonesia and places like this, and they entice people to come to sign agreements to come and be not chattel slaves, but to be indentured laborers, which is a form of voluntary slavery for a period of time. After which they'll give them money, they'll give them land, they'll give them or they repatriate them back with all that, you know. So people, of course, many of them poor people, and they promise all these promises that they got, the Europeans, they got that promising. So many of them came. And as I said, I don't know the percentage of Muslim to Hindu, but we know that there was a significant percentage of Muslims also part of those groups coming in. And they, of course, they spread throughout the Caribbean, South America, Guyana, Suriname, Trinidad, Jamaica, St. Vincent, all those areas, they settled, they worked. And again, they brought Islam. And Islam, that's when Islam really began to take root in the area, because the previous slaves could not keep the religion. Of course, being chattel slaves, they were property.
Yep.
According to British law, they were property. You buy them and sell them, so therefore they had no
rights,
no
no
rights
freedom
at all. So they couldn't keep any language, no culture, no nothing. All right, such as this. But those who came as indentured, they were able to keep this. So this is where you find that in Trinidad and Guyana and Suriname and places like that, in Jamaica and stuff, that they were building masjids. You know, because Hindus built temples, but Muslims were building masjids the Islam remained in whatever form, even though it might not be scholarly Islam, but it remained in whatever form in those areas. And a great number of those people moved north. Coming north, so that is one wave that came north into North America. The others that came into North America, the first wave, as I said, the first wave were from the slave population, because once they brought the slaves over from Africa to the Caribbean, they stopped in the Caribbean first. All the rebellious slaves were dropped there. The ones who were rebellious and stuff like that, they were dropped in the Caribbean because they're islands, so therefore they dropped them off there and sold them off there, because it's easier to contain and control them, and they didn't really bring them and sold them to the north. So you find there were more rebellions in the south than up here in the north, because they were rebellious. They didn't want to remain as slaves. Yeah, and many of them were Muslims who were rebelling. So they came north. That was the first group, and again, many of them, the religion didn't take a lot of hold because of those rigors of chattel slavery. So the second group that came in to North America was Muslims now migrating north from South America here. There's a very large Guyanese, Trinidadian population here in North America. You had the second wave that came in from outside, were Muslims coming from the Muslim world now. There were Indo-Pak, Arab, Asian. You know, that was the other wave that came through the 60s and 70s, when the doors opened up for immigration, and a lot of them there was a great influx. But before that, you had Islam beginning to thrive here in North America. Before that wave came in, it was thriving here among the black population of Muslims till Islam was considered black. So you used to call black Muslims. The face of Islam was my face.
Yep.
You know,
I remember that when I came in the 80s. Yep.
The face of Islam. It was the face of Islam, you know. And although you had, there were two main groups Among the Muslims, there was the Nation of Islam, coming from Elijah Muhammad background, which was the pseudo-Islam group, and there was the traditional Muslim groups, Sunni groups, that we call them, among the Muslims that were here also practicing in North America. So that you found that all the masjids, and the difference was that the Nation of Islam, they were places of worship were called temples, and the Muslims, the Sunni Muslims, their places were called masjids. So you had all through the East Coast, the masjids established. They were all by African Americans, black people, and all the media. You had black news media in terms of newspapers. Besides, most people remember only the call by the Nation.
Yeah, because we used to get, remember it because when you stop at a stoplight, the guys used to be there every month, and you used to get the call when you stop at a light.
So most people learned, but there were other, Western Sunrise and other weekly newspapers that were published by the Sunni group also. So so the messages, the media, the faith, everything that was before the influx that came in. So Islam, and this was across the whole East Coast, across America as a whole, bringing it back, to Jersey, which is the other area we covered. The same thing that was happening across the East Coast was happening in Jersey, so that a whole lot of Muslims. There was a lot of Sunni groups that were in here, especially when we bring it home to Newark. They had the Din Allahi Arabic Society. That was one of the earliest groups that was here in Jersey, in Newark, actually, based in Newark. And it's through this group, actually, that the mayor's father.
So we talked about it in the last one, the impact it had on the people in Newark.
Yeah, he took the ship. So back in the 60s, late 60s and early 70s, a lot of the musicians were becoming Muslim. Ahmad Jamal, Muhammad Idris, all the jazz musicians, and a lot of them were becoming Muslims. And he was part of the cultural. His father was part of the cultural icons of the day, and he became a Muslim. He became Amiri. He took the name Amiri Baraka, So the Islam was settled here going from early, and of course the Nation, when they came in around the 60s. They came in, I think 61 or something like that. They came in, and they said their first temple was established around that time. They didn't transition until after the death of Elijah Muhammad, and Imam Warahdin, his son, took over. And Imam Warahdin, may Allah have mercy on him, grant him Jannah, he brought the group over to the Sunnah. He pulled the group into the Sunnah. So it moved from temple to masjid. So we get Masjid Muhammad in Newark. So that was a great influx into the Sunnah to make it even stronger, the Muslims of the Sunnah, even stronger and more established, when that whole body of people who were on the Nation came into Sunni Islam. That was really serious impact. That really caused it to flourish even more and make it even stronger. And so in Newark, you found Muslims in the state of Jersey. You have Muslims from all backgrounds. The diversity is tremendous. Just like the state itself, the diversity of the state. Jersey is considered one of the most diverse states in the United States of America, and Jersey, and therefore we got over 8 million people in Jersey, and Newark itself is the largest city. We got over 280,000 people in Newark, and you have a significant Muslim population here. The Muslim population in Jersey is about 3 or 4%
Yep.
You know, officially, probably second largest population.
Yep.
And then Newark itself is also very
Yep.
strong. So these were the kind of the points that we were trying to emphasize, you know, that Islam is not something new. It's not a Johnny come lately thing in America. It's been here for a long time.
There's a long history.
There's a long history.
Of many waves.
Yes, of many ways that we've been around, you know.
So, Sheikh, let me ask you something a little bit different now, because people have seen the whole discussion. Tell me a little bit about when you sit back now and talk about the series you did. Why was it important for you to do it? Now you sit and think about, how do you feel about it? How do you feel having done the series?
Yeah, I thought the series was important. Of course, this is like, well, we're just going into March, but February is African History Month, and I thought that we should do something different to the usual things that people do on History Month. They'll just focus on one person or something like that. I thought that it'd be good for us to let people see that Islam it was a significant part of African history. It is not just because most times when they talk about African history here, they don't highlight Islam. They don't talk about Islam as though it didn't exist, even though more than 30% of the people were Muslims.
Yep.
You know, even when they talk about Malcolm, people don't want to like highlight that Malcolm, you know, or Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, as he died with the name Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz. They don't want to highlight that he was Muslim.
Yeah.
You know, or the great, or many of the great icons that we have as Muslims. You know, who passed through here, Muhammad Ali, and so. But they'll never highlight the aspect of them as though Islam was something different.
Yep.
You know, so I thought it was important for us to look at it from this point of view. Yeah, we're here. We've been here a long time.
What points you got over? You talk about a lot of the points you got over during this series. Is there anything there that you kind of want to like the listeners to kind of hear now that you didn't get over? That something you'd say, okay, you know what? I should have included that as I start to think about it. What opportunity you use now to say, let me mention one other thing I didn't mention in any of the series?
There's some things I glossed over because of the time of the program. I thought should get a little deeper into some of the impacts or some of the highlights, some of the important people or people that historically of African Muslims, how they impact the society and those who shine, that we have records, historical records of them in the society, so we can see, look, this is part of our history. If you can talk about African history in America, you can't miss these people.
Yep.
But we didn't have time really to go into highlight, some of those people, that is there, and there are quite a few of them, There was a small cameo that was done called Prince of what's it called, Prince of Slaves or something like that.
Yeah.
That one that just featured just the life of one of the thing, Muslims.
We got a question.
Yeah, so we have a question here that says, what suggestions do you have to continue the legacy of Muslims that migrated into the U.S.?
So that's interesting. We'll hold that question.
Yeah.
Because I have a follow-up question to that. We'll ask that question because I do have a follow-up to that. So remind me of that question. We'll take that question. Sheikh, so growing up as a young black person in the Caribbean, and whatever you talk about, you grew up from a non-Muslim Christian family, and the Caribbean environment and everything around you, and then you left and went to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So was there anything about that journey to Saudi Arabia and the time you spent there that had an impact on you in a certain way in terms of your philosophy, your thinking, your view of the world, your view of people, your view of racism, view of black people. Did anything change through that experience?
Yeah, as you know, I'll say, you know, it was, first of all, you know, growing up in the Caribbean as a non-Muslim, you know, from a Christian background, you know, and finding Islam, it was, I consider it a blessing
Yep.
to find Islam, you know, that Islam found me,
Yep.
you know, in that environment, because although, like for instance, Barbados, although I had Muslims, I had no contact with them. I didn't know because Muslims, they were Muslims from India,
Yep.
and they was pretty much a closed community.
Yep.
They didn't really share their
Yep.
faith like that, you know. So I didn't know of their existence.
Yep.
So you know, meeting Muslims, you know, my first contact with Muslims was from Muslims from brothers from North America coming there, and my interacting with them and I learned about Islam. And actually, that's how I became a Muslim. You know, coming for that was my first contact. But you know, and finding Islam and then going to the center of or the birthplace of Islam, the cradle of Islam in Arabia, there was a profound impact on me in that, you know, there it is something to explain. I don't know how you explain it really. When you sit and you're able to see Muslims from this diversity
Yep.
of Muslims, you know, Muslims from all over the world. You know, it is something, especially during the Hajj season or during the Umrah season, you know, in the summers when people come to do Umrah, and you're able to see people from all over. During the Hajj season, you know, I used to take it as, it was a thrill for me to sit and watch the different people and to try to identify where they're from.
Right.
There's so many of them. This one, you know, because even though they're just different, slightly
Yep.
different, even though some
Shades of
them
different.
shades
Depending
of
on
difference.
Africa. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially from Africa.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, or even Asia too, because
Yep.
you know, Malaysians and the Indonesians and all these people wear the sarong.
Yeah.
They all wear a sarong that you know,
The
what
long
they-
skirt.
yeah,
like,
yeah, with the long the thing that they wear under below. You know, I mean, the Arabs call it izar.
Yep.
You know, and the Pakistani call it longi, or the Indian people call it longi or futa.
Yeah.
And then the thing call it sarong, and everybody, you'd be surprised how many people wear that same thing.
And call it a different thing.
And all of them call it something different. And they all fall it different. They all wear it different, slightly different. Even the Yemenis wear it too.
Yep.
And they call it different. It's all done slightly different. They wear them all slightly different. So you can tell the difference. Although a Filipino and a Malaysian wear a sarong, you can tell the difference between the two of them, right? Because they wear them different. They're slightly different. But the fascinating was the people from Africa. You know, African peoples, because Africa has so many peoples, different nations of people, different nations of people. And, you know, we had to figure out, well, this is a Nigerian, and this is a person from Mali, and this is a person from, you know, it is something to be able to identify them like that.
Not just clothes.
No, looking at them, we identify them
Yep.
from the way they dress, the way they, you know, not just from their language, you know, because you don't know the difference. I don't know the different languages and stuff like that, but just how they dress and how they would.
Well, what impact did that have on you?
And that
what?
was, you know, that was fantastic. That was something fascinating for me, you know, that you can find a connection and see this, you know, it shows this globalization of Islam.
Did you feel
Because
like
for
you
me
were
from
part
the
of something
yes,
bigger?
Something much huge. Something huge, because all these different people from all these different backgrounds, you know, and they're all praying together in the same praying, you know, and I would think about it, you know, this person is from here, that one, that, and they're all praying. We're all praying together, and we feel good. You know, I feel part of this international.
Yep.
It was really something. You know, you have to see it. You know, there, and it's all the different cultures, and is really, I mean, it really is impactful when you see that all that deep, the diversity of cultures
Yep.
and stuff like that, you know, and you see all kinds of people come through, you know, rich people, poor people, royalty, all kinds. I've seen all kinds of people come through there. It's there. I first met Kareem Abdul-Jabbar right there
Yeah.
in Medina. He came to perform Umrah. And this is when I met him. I met him for the first time, you know. So I met Muhammad Idris, the jazz player.
Yeah, yeah.
I met him there. And so, you know, so you had opportunity to meet so many different people coming through, you know, when you thing. You know.
So that brings me to the question the person asked, right? You talk about this global family and the ability to feel connected. And somebody asked a question just now, connected to the question you talk about. So for all these second generation Muslims whose families and parents came through whatever different route they came, first wave, second wave, third wave, whatever, African American, fifth generation or second generation Indo-Pak or Caribbean first generation. What lessons can they take from this heritage and all this stuff that you said now exists in New Jersey and some of the other states of the mixture of all this diaspora coming, whether it's from Africa or the Middle East or the Caribbean? What can they take from this as a positive in terms of the way forward for Islam in America?
I think that the Muslims do not fully appreciate the richness of the heritage that they have. This diversity is you know, they say diversity is the spice of life. And I don't think that Muslims fully understand or conceptualize the power of that diversity. You know, because you find Muslims still, we're still nationalistic to an extent. You know, I mean, I know as part of the vestiges of colonialism, you know, that, you know, created all this nationalistic kind of tendencies. But, you know, we need to break out, how we can break out of that. And I think these generations now, you know, that, okay, those are our parents, our great-grandparents, what have you, you know, but now third, fourth, second, third generation, we need this new young people need to be able to break out of those nationalistic shells in which we have cast ourselves. You know, this is Egyptian and this is Palestinian. You know, not even among the Arabs itself. You know, these Arabs, but he's Egyptian. You know, or he's Palestinian. You know, or he's Jordanian. You know, and they don't mix as easily. You know, but still there still is a separate group, Arab. Unlike, you know, Indo-Pak, he's Pakistani, he's Indian, he's Bangladeshi. They're separate. So there's a Bangladeshi masjid, you know, and they mix. Or the same thing, we find that a lot. So you find that, you know, even in North.
Even here, even our
in
community,
North, as
right?
we have,
Yeah.
you know, even
Yeah.
in North as we have it,
Yeah.
you know, you have African masjids. We have a number of African masjids here in Newark. We have a number of African American masjids in Newark. We have, you know, they're all separate. Then we have the NIA, which is a mixture of Caribbean and some other people.
Yep.
And we have a Bangladeshi masjid also, you know, that they, of course, and they stay to themselves only, and so on. So we still have that same problem that exists here, even in Newark. You find, you know, this is why
What would you like people to do?
So this way is if we can transcend these national cocoon kind of groupings that we have put ourselves, I think, and really embrace that diversity. If we're able to rise above and embrace the diversity in which we find ourselves, you know, as Allah says, "Lita arafu." ta'aruf, or you know what I mean, that you should get to know one another. And we can, you know, and this does not, many people tend to think to get to know that means that giving up your cultural differences. No, Islam does not say give up your cultural differences. Culture, that will make you rich. It's part of the richness of Islam is the diversity of culture. So Islam, you know, and Islam never encourage anybody to give up their culture unless it is destructive.
Yep.
Right? Only those destructive cultures, things in culture that the Islam would encourage you to give up. You know, drinking alcohol and stuff like that. You know, but any positive cultural thing, Islam encourages us to maintain it. You know, but so if we're able to embrace that, all those different, and bring it together, you know how rich, I mean, that richness, how powerful it would be in terms of the community really rising in this part and establishing and showing that we can all live together, we can all work together, we can all achieve together, and we can push forward. If we're able to create, you know, I mean, I think if we're able to come together, we can create a synergy.
The collaboration.
Yes,
Collaboration and efforts.
we can create a synergy that is going to really propel us forward. And Muslims become much more constructive and develop beyond just a masjid, for instance, or the Islamic Center, you know. So we'll have institutions, we go institutions outside of this. We have, because that's the only level of institution that we've reached so far is masjid and Islamic Center and fledgling schools. You know, we haven't gone beyond. We don't have any medical centers and hospitals and, you know, recreational centers, and, you know, and
elderly care.
Elderly care and business. We haven't gone beyond that. We haven't really established it because we've not been, and not that because lack of means or lack of potential or lack of know-how. It's just that we've not been able to break out
and use the collective strength.
And use that collective strength. We've not been able to do that.
Any question? So I want to bring up a very personal thing with you. So, you know, you talk about the journey of Africa to the Caribbean to North America and about all the impact it has on people here. But you're part of that journey, right? And, you know, when you think about, you grew up in Barbados, which was the first landing.
Yeah.
And then you became Muslim. And then you went to Saudi and then came back to the Caribbean, lived in Guyana for a while, lived in the Bahamas for a while, came here in this community in Newark and New Jersey and New York area. I mean, don't you sit back and think, we see you differently. Like, I don't know if you see this, but your contributions have been significant through that journey. I mean, the impact you've had with the Caribbean Muslims, the impact you've had in Guyana, you know, me growing up in Guyana as a young boy and seeing you, the impact you had in the Bahamas, and here, it's been a significant impact that you've had and how many people have really viewed you as a role model, both in, I mean, not in the black community, but in every aspect of our communities. Everybody, you've kind of passed through in those phases in that journey. You've touched a lot of people in different ways. Have you ever thought about it?
No, not really. I never really, you know, looked into it. Except, but I mean, as you mentioned it, I mean, it is, I think it is an honor for me that Almighty God Allah has been merciful to me to be able to do that, because it is not me as a person.
Yeah.
It is the benefits of Islam, because when I look at, I always said, you know, that you know, I had two lives. You know, I'm living my second life now. You know, my first life was up until I was about 19, you know, 19, 20, going that age, that I live as a non-Muslim in a non-Muslim family. We don't have no idea about life and reality, because the understanding of at that time, and my understanding as a non-Muslim, as a Christian family, it was completely different to Islam. Islam gives you a perspective and that is so deep, on reality. So it was Islam that really brought that gave that opportunity to me. Yes, and it has impacted me a lot. In that I consider I'm absolutely fortunate, and I give thanks to Almighty God Allah for the opportunity to be able to go through all these different changes and all these things. From that point, as I was telling, I told some person one time, that for me, that Allah is very merciful. When I see from the slavery period, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for He knows what happened. Why why was that period there? It was a gruesome, hard, a human period in which all people went through the slave passage. That was the most inhuman form of slavery that has ever existed, because slavery is an age-old human institution. But Europeans' chattel slavery is the worst thing you could imagine. It is nothing like slavery as it was as a part of the human institutions that has existed in memorial. All right, because when you read all the history books, Bible, religious books, whatever, you find that there were slaves always there. Everybody had slaves. China, all the people, even though, but it was completely different. Chattel slavery that was created by the Europeans, starting with the British, is the worst form of slavery, a human, because it takes away and it takes away the human element from, because all those people, they might be captured, and they might be captives of war, they might be whatever, but they were human beings. Chattels were not human beings. They were commodities. Yes, they were commodities. Chattel to own, build and sell and stuff. So you didn't treat them as you treat them like you treat the chair. I mean, some of them might even be treated. The chair might even get better treatment than some, because they got some more value, sentimental value to a chair. How some people were treated. But he went through all of that. And, out of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought people like myself out of it, back to Islam. I thought this is something, it is like Moses in the house of Pharaoh. Pharaoh was the most evil dude you could imagine on the face of the earth. He was one of the most evil people, Pharaoh. And yes, still, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let Moses come up in the house of Pharaoh. And Moses come out of the house of Pharaoh, out of the dark cell of the house of Pharaoh, and come out and rise to become one of the great messengers of Almighty God Allah to free the children of Israel. So that for us, we can think of that great rebirth for ourselves. All the African American brothers and sisters who now went through all that, or families, or parents and stuff, or ancestors really went through all of that stuff, and then come back, and become Muslim, because how many of you know, we can trace many of us, when you trace, you might find yourself back, if you're able to do your trace, your history, and you might wind back up in a Muslim village in some place in Africa, and now to come back and be Muslim again. It is really, that's something really, really significant, that we come back out again as Muslims to represent. And the journey I had, for me, I had a fantastic journey. In my second life as a Muslim now, it is a fantastic journey. I've met all kind of people. I've met, kings. I've met, important people. I've met simple people. I've traveled all over. It was significant. For me, I think it's humbling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed me to be able to do all of that. And here I am in Newark. I never thought that I would come and live here. To be quite frank with you, I never thought that I would come and live here at all, you know. Although most of my family, you know, from my mother's side, they all live in this side, you know. More than half of my family live on this side, most of New York side, you know. They Brooklyn, you know, they I think, going back to my great-grandparents. You know, they settled in Brooklyn. So like half of our family was always like here and half of like in Barbados, you know. So there was always a come and go. So like we grew up as kids, you know. I look forward to when they'll send you a little barrel at Christmas
Some
time.
apples inside.
Say at Christmas time, you know, and we're looking for some for us as kids, we're looking for the electrician stuff like that. So it was, you know, it was a thing, you know. But I never really, myself, I never really had I love the Caribbean, you know, and I moved, that's why I moved from one place to the other through the Caribbean. I covered most of the Caribbean islands and went right through. I went right up to Belize, you know, and conducting programs and classes and stuff like that, you know, and I always thought myself, you know, living and staying there, you know. But it's Allah's the will of Allah. That
Maybe because it feels like the Caribbean when you're here. That's why you stay here. But Sheikh, look, we're wrapping up, but I wanna use this opportunity for all the people that, you know, you went through those islands, that you impacted and the lives you touched, to take this opportunity to thank you for the work you've done in those communities. I'm sure that a lot of those brothers and sisters, if they have the opportunity to sit, they would have done that. And I want to use this opportunity to say, this journey of yours has made a tremendous impact on so many people through this journey, you know, the Caribbean, Saudi Arabia, and wherever you've lived, and in our community. And we thank you and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you, your family, for all the good you've done to our community. You've been an amazing role model for us and our children. So thank you, and good evening, everyone. And I don't know if there's any more questions that we have. I think we're going to wrap, and we thank you once again for sharing with us the stories and the journeys and your own wisdom. And we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless everyone at home. Thank you all for joining us this evening. And inshallah, looking forward to next week, Thursday night fireside chat again at 8 p.m. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.